Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coaches around the world, welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your boy Road Dogg with the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Karl Bryan. Sir, are you able to hear us today through that lab coat of yours? What's going on?
I am. Shoots. I got my stethoscope on. What do you think? Is that a good idea?
Do you want to try saying that word again? I don't think that's how you say it.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I was as it was coming out. I'm like, that sounds like a messy way to say it. But no, I'm not going to embarrass myself.
Stethoscope.
There you go.
I believe. I ain't no doctor, but anyways. So there you go. There you go. Hey, listen. I was reading over your jokes for the previous week, and I don't know what to make of. Can explain this to me? If you see me in the garage practicing my nunchucks and my Crocs, just keep driving. I don't want to get you pregnant. Can you dive into that for us a little bit, if you don't mind? I'm not sure
exactly.
If playing Silent Night on your car horn is exactly what they had in mind.
Post-Christmas shoots. Post-Christmas. Nobody liked it. I don't understand. I didn't get it. I didn't get all the dirty looks and the snowballs coming at me. It was odd.
And this one hits a little close to home. Life-altering difference. Speaking of broken promises, we have to get together sometimes. It's a great way of saying I regret running into you.
You like that one, Chief?
It's something else, bud. Your comedic genius is something else. Now, as I'm reading these, and by the way, speaking of comedic geniuses, rest in peace, Bob Saget. That was some tragic news. Unbelievable. What is it with all these comedians, man? Like, again, allegedly no drugs or anything found, but man, that's just, you probably grew up watching Full House, like with, well, hang on a second. No, you probably were about 38 when that show came out. Is that about right?
Oh, come on. You wish. Let's go with it. Let's go with that. Yeah, they rest in peace, man. He's a bit of a legend of our time, Full House. Not that I was a huge Full House fan, but maybe America's Funniest Home Videos might have been more my style, I think. But yeah, God bless him, man. He was just getting back into stand-up comedy and whatnot, apparently loving it and doing a great job. And oh, man, you never know. Days are numbered.
Apparently he did a 2-hour show the day before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I heard. Imagine that. You're at his last show. Man, I can't even. Listen, life is short, everybody. Like, that's all I got to say about that. Like, holy smokes. Because he was younger than you. He was 65 or something. So, something like that.
Stop it. You dick. All right, let's go.
You told me to get off the short jokes, so I'm getting on the old joke.
Yeah,
right?
Well done. Let's go back to short.
Pick your theme. So speaking of short, you are in the Turks and Caicos. Like, how far can you walk out? I hope it's one of those where you can walk out a distance before it goes beyond 4 feet. What's it like there, bud?
Actually, you know what? It is freaking amazing. Although I cannot walk far out into the water. It's actually, there's this massive reef. It really is unbelievable. The entire island is protected by this reef, which makes it insanely calm. And also, I was saying in the pre-show, but like the color of the water and whatnot, it's just, I don't know how to explain it. But anybody that's been here will know. And if you look it up on the internet, you'll be staring at it. But it's got this amazing green-blue color that's just like gobsmacking. So love it. Love it.
Is there no surfing there then, Karl?
No, not really. No, there's a little bit, but it's lame. Like they're not 5-foot waves; they're 2-foot waves, which you can't really surf on. But do a little bit of bodyboarding, I'd imagine. But no, it's the opposite. So like like, like jet surfing. So it's like surfing, but like, with like a, what do you call it? Like a motorized surfboard, which you need flat water for. There's a bit of that ripping around. So no, it's ridiculously calm for the ocean. So there you go. Thanks to this reef that runs around. Anyways, it's very cool, man. Very cool. But look it up, and there it is. There it is. With Turks and Caicos shoots. I love it.
It's something else, bud. Like, yeah. So, anyways, listen, I'm gonna dive right in here because we've got, believe it or not, questions beyond just your
Nice.
choice and jokes. Somebody
Nice.
wrote in here and said, like, you recently mentioned in an email why most coach-client relationships don't work. Can you go deeper for me? And real quick, stay tuned until the end if you're wondering about these daily. Like, Karl sends out a daily email, so I'll be pumping that up at the end of the show here. But there's gold in there. But again, you mentioned coach-client relationships don't work. So why would you say that? Can you dive into that for us a bit?
Yeah. Sorry, shoot. I don't know. I'm just trying to work out what that would be. I think, okay, here's something I was planning on throwing out anyways. You know what it is? It's, what's it called? Law of triviality. That's it. If you look, okay, so if you want to know, it's not just coach-client relationships, but what I would have explained there is like, why do so many businesses fail, and why do governments seem to be like insanely ineffective and, kind of waste their time and money? Law of triviality would be a huge reason why. Like it's common to give a disproportionate amount of importance to trivial issues, is what it says. So normally at the expense of things that are more complex, right? So when given the option between complex and trivial wins every time without strategic, like game plan, conscious thought, like a strategy type approach, right? So the government they avoid things like, let's say they got some traffic issues, right? And the reason for that is they have a bottleneck, like a bridge, what have you. Well, that will stop the city from growing. And if the city does grow, which it tends to, then all of a sudden you got these log jams and everybody's waiting in, rush hour traffic to get their kids to school or to get to work at certain times of the day, right? So instead of spending an inordinate amount of time trying to solve that problem and major issue, the government will work on stuff like, the local bike path, the local park, or planting flowers at the local park would be like an example I'd give, right? And the local school, by the way, same thing. They spent all this time on the yearbook. And look, the yearbook's important and it should be kick-ass. But the curriculum that's 10 years old and the textbooks that are 10 years old and like the curriculum that's kind of lame and outdated and not really working anymore. This might be where they might want to, think about bringing in some computers and teaching some computer science to the kids. So when you get there, what you want to do is you want to spend time on solving problems, right? The yearbook and the bike path are not problems. Again, trivial type of things to be thinking about. And the curriculum, the traffic issue are problems. You want to go to problems and you want to ultimately change your spidey senses to go straight to solve problems, right? And here's where I see this a critical importance for coaching clients. It's business coaches and the business owners. What are they working on? So again, they'll spend a large amount of their time working on, let's just say like solving a specific client issue rather than going to what's real, what's important would be a better word for saying, right? So rather than what's super important and go into those real issues, right? So think little rocks versus big rocks. I'll assume everybody's seen that experiment, right? Where there's a guy on stage and he's got a jar and then he's got these big rocks and he's got these little rocks, where when he takes the little rocks, puts them in, and then tries to put the big rocks on top, they've got no chance of fitting, right? Versus when he puts the big rocks in and then he starts pouring the little rocks in, basically everything fits and there's lots of room, right? So like basically you got to go big rocks and then the little rocks on top. So think about that with your coaching client. All that being said, I'm on record many a times, and I absolutely would do this. When you first start working with a client, I get tactical because, you end the podcast with progress equals happiness for a reason. I want to make a little bit of progress and I want to have some short-term wins early, but ultimately the big wins, like the strategic stuff you need to get to, and you want to get to it sooner than later. But I do want to get some small wins. So I don't mind you getting tactical for the first 30, 60, maybe 90 days. But ultimately you want to identify what those big rocks are, what those big problems are. And a real big problem is one that when you solve the problem, many other problems will disappear, right? But first, okay, what do you got to do? You got to identify the big rocks, right? And frankly, it's hard work both for you and for the coaching client. It can feel like, like it's not exciting. It's not like jumping out of a plane. It's not that fun, sexy stuff to be working on with your client, but identifying what those are, these can be the 1%ers that represent 50% of the value in the relationship. But anyway, so no doubt you get it, and you'll get there by asking questions. You ask the right questions. You define if you ask the right question, you often find that you're defining a problem. And when you define the problem correctly, the answer becomes self-explanatory. Like the answer becomes almost automatic, right? So anyway, so the bottom line, Road Dog, what I would have been saying there, and that was just, last week that I sent that out, just working on trivial things. If given the option between trivial and complex, you'll naturally go trivial. Your client will go trivial. And as I say that, I know it's like, oh, this is obvious, but look at your day-to-day activities over the last 12 hours, last 12 days, last week, last month, last quarter, and you might find that you're spending too much time on trivial type stuff. So what you want to be thinking about is which rock can you move? What problem can you solve that will eliminate other problems? That's when you know you're really working on the right quote unquote thing. Again, and don't be lazy in your thinking. Don't let your clients be lazy in their thinking is kind of the way that I'd finish that off, because, being lazy will lead you to those trivial things, right? It's significantly harder, and you'll kill more brain cells going to the big stuff. So anyways, that's my answer shoots. So there you go, bud.
Okay. So much to no one's surprise, the next question is about franchising. Like, how often do we get these? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you know a thing or 10 about franchising. So the person just wrote and said, look, my coaching client is a sole proprietor and has 3 med spas, gross revenues of 3.5 million, and is now obviously thinking about wanting to franchise. What would you suggest there?
Nice. Sorry, how many Medi Spas? It was 3.5 million?
3.
Yeah, I want to go. Okay. First of all, great biz. I got to tell you, Medi Spas, we again talked about this in the last month or two. They get a disproportionate valuation, right? Like lots of roll-ups in this space. Again, they're kind of sexy. Everybody wants to get into them. So PE firms, private equity firms are buying up a bunch. A roll-up is like they come in and they don't buy 1 or 2, like they're buying like 100 of them, right? So they have, a lot of advantages, obviously, to owning 100 Medi Spas versus 2 or 3. They're buying better and all that sort of stuff. Insurance is so much cheaper, owning a lot of real estate. Anyway, so they get a valuation, like a high one, a multiple well over 10, which is weird. So I don't know, let's just say 10 to 15 multiple. And then I think it's a little bit high as it stands now, and that will come down. But bottom line, that's a good business to be in. And this is it'd be a great coaching client. Is what I'm kind of trying to get around to. So 3 studios wants to franchise and wondering if it's a good idea. Look, I say this ad nauseum, right? But start with the little red arrow. You are here. They've got 3 locations. Well, how, the gross, so at 3.5 million, but what's the net? And then what's the net of each location? And I'd want to lift up the hood a little bit. I remember working with a guy, and he had, it was 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 2 to 3, can't remember. But like they wanted to add another location, or again, franchising came up. And it was like the intelligent thing to do was to go to existing locations and make sure that they're uber profitable. This is where the guy that wants to get to $1 million, that's his ego talking. And remember, you could hit 500 grand and making X profit, and then get to 1 million and be making less profit at 1 million than you were at 500,000, or maybe let's assume the same or a negligible increase. Well, you got more staff, more locations, more headaches, more dramas, more suppliers, more emails, more customers, more things to do. Like, is that what they ultimately want? So again, just making sure that, they're not letting their ego drive them. And franchising is amazing. It's an unbelievable way to grow a business. But it's not for the faint of heart. If you do it wrong, you take on the wrong person initially, could be messy. So anyway, I don't know. I'd list before making that. I'd look at the 3.5 million, which again is obviously gross the way they worded that, I guess, right? So that, is not all that exciting. You got 3 locations. So let's lift up the hood a little bit, and the answer might be to be going in the other direction, and maybe like wiping, going to 1 or maybe going to 2, and really making them crushingly profitable, and really drilling down on the systems and making them super turnkey. And that's going to be a more like a franchisable business. Because again, what I'm thinking is they're thinking that if they get to 4 locations, that sounds more franchisable than having 1 or 2, which is debatable. That could be right. That could be wrong. But having 1 crushing location that absolutely works, that is totally dialed in and that is totally duplicatable. Now this is franchisable, right? That's where the mindset might be a little bit wonky. And just because they want to do something doesn't mean that they're right? You motivate an idiot, they do stupid things quicker. This is where experience matters, right? Communication, like, you know what I mean? Because there might be a chance that they want a franchise, and then you're like, well, geez, I think we should wipe 1 or 2 of these locations off, or we should be lifting up the hood as opposed to expanding. This can sometimes be something that they'll push back on and not be favorable initially. And this is where you're, as a business coach, your communication, your ability to communication here is totally key. And firstly, with always communication, firstly with yourself. But for this example, we're talking about managing somebody else and the coaching relationship in a positive way. Like when a client disagrees with you or a debate around direction, most coaches, what I'll find is that they posture and explain why, you're wrong and then they're right. Or, like, that's not true. This is true. Like they'll try to, you know what I mean? Like posture, like as though, hang on a second, I got to pound my chest here a little bit. What is that going to do? That's going to create conflict. That's going to create resistance, right? What you want to do is you want to align with that person, right? You want to make it their idea. You do this most effectively by reframing as a question, right? So you want to make it their idea. How do you do that? You reframe it as a question, right? So as a framework, think masculine energy wants to be right. Feminine energy wants to be understood, right? So analyze what kind of, and that's not man or woman, right? That's masculine. Road dog, me, every guy's got plenty of feminine energy, and then all, women have plenty of masculine energy, especially when things in and around business. So you want to be thinking about what kind of energy that is that you're dealing with here. So masculine energy wants to be right. Feminine wants to be understood. So I'd analyze that a little bit. And, you don't want to make them wrong. You don't want to make feminine energy feel like it's misunderstood. And you got to learn. So what do you got to do? You got to learn to hear them out. You hear it all the time. You got 1 mouth and 2 ears. There's a reason why. You really got to listen. Don't listen to respond. Listen to listen, right? You're looking for emotional cues. You're looking for, how to use those emotional cues and whatnot to help and adjust their thinking, and ideally make the direction that maybe makes more sense than expanding. But going to these existing, like going to systems, going to processes, going to understand their existing business at a higher level. They think that they've got to 4 locations or whatever it is, that they're kicking butt and they know it inside out, right? Well, that's not necessarily true, right? A lot of the time, the guy that's got 1 location doing unbelievable numbers with unbelievable profit margins, there's a debate to say that guy knows it significantly better. Do you know what I mean? Again, if you don't understand profit margins, if you're not spending time thinking about profit margins, you're not running your business in the right way. And I'll tell you that if you line me up 100 business owners, I'll show you 80, probably 95 business owners that aren't thinking gross profit margin. And that again would be a mistake. And, your client's never going to go big by thinking small. Like things like using pauses. Think of, your dad speaking to a 6-year-old child that's been a bad boy. You want to use that voice as opposed to posturing and saying, you're wrong. This is the right direction. You're making a mistake. Like somebody says to you, like you propose your coaching fees as an example, and they say it's too much. Your answer, you're right. It's a large investment in yourself and in your company. But the question is, if you keep doing what you've been doing, are you really going to get to where you want to be and where you said you wanted to be just earlier in this conversation? Do you want to stay stuck? Is it fair to say it's a big investment now, but when your company's earning an extra $250,000, $500,000, $1 million with 50% margins, and that's X amount of profit, doesn't $24,000, $36,000 coaching relationship become irrelevant? And you're not only going to have those revenues for this year, but once we build them, it's not like they're going to stop. When we add $500,000 of gross revenue to your business with 40 to 50% margins, it's not like it's going to stop in 12 months when I walk and I go do something different. Did your competitors grow to 10 locations and X number, 5 or 50 million or 10 million gross revenues with 40% margins by thinking small? Or did they do it by investing in themselves, investing in their own company, right? Or, you sit down with our software, my software just found us over $175,000 in newfound profit in only 45 minutes. Is it fair to say if I'm bad and you're bad and the market falls on its head, that we'll still manage to double your money at $24,000 for my fees? If we get to $48,000 in profit, you doubled your money. And if you go invest X in Bitcoin right now and you doubled your money, you'd be happy about that. You said that earlier. So don't you think this is a good idea? You get it, Road Dog. I'm just trying, you want to always take objections and turn them into questions. That's like the frame. So you're sitting with somebody and they're putting up an objection either in a sales environment or the direction of their company or the direction that you're talking about going. You take it and you turn it into a question. That's the way that you reframe it. And you want them to also feel strong. Like they're sitting there, I don't know, in a weak headspace. You want them to answer from a strong place. So like Tony Robbins always takes you to a strong place emotionally. If you've ever been to Tony Robbins, he's got you up, jumping up and down, doing your move, massaging your neighbors, high-fiving, screaming, yes, standing up and punching the air with your fist. He's doing that for a reason, right? Because he's getting you into a strong place. Well, a great question pre-close as you're sitting there and talking to somebody is, when was a time in your life when you made a big decision that you were nervous about it? It worked out incredibly well. Okay, well, they're going to answer with, she started a business. I walked up to the guy. I walked up to the girl. I asked her to marry me. I took on the big client. I took on the big dealership. I signed the paperwork, right? Well, whatever it is that they say, you now have what I refer to as an anchor, and then you can come back to that anchor, and you're going to take them back to that strong place. And that's how you'll be able to, get them into so making a strong decision. Like, look, let's not expand, but let's look at these existing locations and reframe the way that we're approaching this, and let's tighten up our systems, tighten up our processes, and let's get this thing ridiculously. Instead of trying to build a big business that satisfies our ego, let's build a small, ruthlessly tight, kick-ass one. You know what I mean? Like that's gonna take some reframing. Is I guess what I'm trying to say here, Road Dog. It's not. And by the way, that might be the wrong direction. Maybe they absolutely should be expanding. But little red arrow, you are here. What do you want? Coaching is the line in between those 2 points, right? And you can go in the other way and ask them about a time when they missed out on something. This is, again, putting them in investing in Bitcoin when they found out about it at $2,500, right? Or a client they missed out on because of a missed opportunity or, not putting themselves out there. You could also use that and represent yourself as the missed opportunity they don't want to let go. They don't want to sign. You got other people asking for your attention and taking you on. You can only take on 10 coaching clients at a time. Look, if you want to do this, I invest in people that are willing to go all in on themselves, that can make hard decisions quickly. Look, you got to make a hard decision. It's time to make it. And if you don't make it, I'm making it for you. And the answer is no. And I know as I say that, if I'm a newer coach is listening, I can, you almost, sweat could come off their brow. Like, gosh, could I really position it that way? Well, and the answer is absolutely. And like I said, you're doing them a favor. You've got to, adjust. Again, communication ultimately starts with you. And you got to be good at communicating. Anyway, so the frame is objection, resistance, turn it into a question, and just always managing so what if two people have got rapport, right? The person with the highest level of belief will influence the other one, right? So you're at a negotiation table, you've got rapport. They're either more determined to say no, or you're more determined to get them to say yes. And the one that's more determined, the one with the stronger belief system, is the one that's going to influence the other one. You've got to, maintain that emotional state. And here's what happens with coaches is that they take on 10 clients. They've got 3 that cancel. And then they don't think about the 7 that are crushing it and working really well and taking their business to new heights. They think about the 3 that aren't getting anywhere, right? And that's, do they want to be spending time there? Anyway, so that's, I don't know, Road Dog, that's little red arrow, you are here. I would, just because somebody has 3 locations that are working, sounds like semi-successfully, doesn't mean that they're ready to franchise by any stretch of the imagination. Again, you could see, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples where that has literally gone, pear-shaped. And I guess the road, the track that I followed there's a debate to say at those revenues that, I'd like to know what the net is. And they might want to go and tighten up what they're already doing versus expanding. Start expanding, more clients, more headaches, more staff, more drama. More revenue does not mean more profit. The end. So anyway, there you go, Shoots. What do you think, bud? You like that?
Yeah, I do like that, because the big thing for me is always really, like, you want more headaches, like you want more staff. Like, why is it that everybody, why does everybody always go to and by the way, when they're saying numbers, right, it's always ego. It's like, well, I did this, but did you? Like,
100%.
What was your net? How much did you actually take home? Because no one cares about anything more than, like, what you took home. So you mentioned ego there. And then also, like, because the next question that came in, it's interesting here, because I'll read it. My coaching client is the type that wants to hit $1 million for his ego. After speaking privately with his wife, I know that he needs to other stuff like spending more time with his family and kids. Do you have a secret for helping him reframe his goals and outlook around time versus gross revenue? So same conversation, Karl, right? It's just, why do people continue to do this? And is there a way that, I guess, you could maybe, make them feel that power that you mentioned on the other side of things? Like, do you have any sort of kind of tips on that?
Yeah. You just hit it though. Like what I just explained, like it's got to become his, again, make him wrong. I'll let you guess how that's going to work out, right? That's, you've already defined, like a alpha male type personality there, right? In the wife, when you say something like a private conversation with his wife, right? That's some family dynamics there. And you got it. Look, welcome to world coaching. You got to manage, like, to pretend like that's not something that should be managed. You'd be nuts, right? So what I just explained, and again, the way you do that is you turn them into questions, take them to a strong place, and just talk about, this isn't about ego, gross profit margins, just, again, the secret, if you write down the top 10 brands in the world by your estimation, I'm going to show you 10 brands with one thing in common, lots of different things, but they got one thing in common: gross profit margin, right? Said that a lot. Absolutely true. Rolex, Ferrari, Disney, Apple, you name it, like, Burberry, Louis Vuitton, you name the top brands in the world, Nike, they've all got gross profit margin, right? So look, again, the family dynamic, one that should be looked at. There's an acronym, DEAL, for establishing a quote unquote ideal kind of lifestyle, and it's D is definition, E is elimination, A is automation, and L is liberation. And quickly, let me run through. So D for definition, right? Like, so money is not the ultimate goal. People think that money's the goal, but people really want money for, they want choices, they want options, and they want lifestyle, right? And again, lifestyle for you and lifestyle for me and lifestyle for somebody else could be different, right? But choices, options, and lifestyle, that's what the guy that wants the red Ferrari, et cetera, again, he wants the choice to be able to go buy the red Ferrari or not, right? He wants the choice to go buy the monster house. He wants the choice to go buy the house in the neighborhood that he deems to be, better for his kids, better for his wife, better for his family, better access to schools, right? So again, it's choices, options, and lifestyle. So D is definition, right? And by the way, this is for someone that wants a great life with options, but not work 80 hours per week until they're 65. So again, this is where you got to reframe it, right? But a guy that wants to build a 9-figure business will have a very different definition, and that's okay. But it sounds like, young kids involved and that sort of thing, and a wifey that's, thinking there might be a better roadmap for her husband. Again, you gotta, but definition is the D. You gotta define what that is, right? And then E, elimination. Being busy all the time is lazy. Think about that. The guy who's busy all the time is really a lazy thinker, right? You're working and not thinking. So remember, the best-selling book is Think and Grow Rich. It's not Work and Grow Rich, right? So being in many cases, being super busy in many cases is like it's someone, how would I describe it? It's hiding from what they'll discover when they slow down. Something you're often going to find. And that's, again, in that alpha male that tends to be a little bit ego driven. See, like Tony Robbins will always say, people come to his seminars to make more money and build this new career and start the business and kick ass with the business. And they normally leave with something very different than what they came for. Right. So like, they don't have a great relationship with their spouse, kids, or friends. Some people actually feel pain when they try to calm themselves, right? So like meditation as an example, for some people, it's literally, they'll describe it as like pain when they hear, like, oh my gosh, exactly, right? So like the person who doesn't have a great relationship with their spouse, kids, friends, and whatnot, gosh, do they really need to go build an extra $1 million of gross revenue? Is that what they need? And the answer is normally not. But the bottom line is elimination as opposed to addition, right? So you got to, and then like what we've talked about this a lot, but like, okay, so if you asked me an example of things that you could eliminate, and it's the unimportant activities, right? Like we talk about eating, right? Like one of the most ineffective bloody things you can do is the act of, deciding what groceries you're going to buy, jumping in the car, going to the grocery store, lining up, buying it, pushing the cart around, getting out, paying, going to the car, putting everything in the back of the car, driving home, traffic jams, everything else, getting home, getting the groceries from where? The back of the car, into the kitchen, onto the counter, into the fridge, into the freezer, downstairs, where, you know what I mean? Like it's insanely inefficient. And then that's just getting the groceries. Now you got to decide what you're going to eat, which you got to do that 3 times a day, right? And you make if you see how much time you spend on getting groceries, eating, etc., make a meal plan, and you'll just save yourself absolutely hours, and then just pay somebody to basically go and do all of that for you, right? So there's all kinds of prepackaged meal options. We've talked about that a lot in the past, so I don't want to begrudge that or labor on that. But this is something that your clients aren't doing. That guy, he wants to continue to grow his business, kick butt, and then his wife wants more time. Well, how could you have both? And if he's going to go and make more money, okay, well, guess what? Then what can he eliminate? And what can he eliminate for his wife, right? What can he eliminate? Anyways, I don't know. I think that just thinking about, and then it's the old example, like wearing the same thing every day. Again, Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, famous for it, right? But you no longer have to think about what it is. It's decision fatigue. So what things can you eliminate, right? A is automation. So you want to outsource things that are done repeatedly, that don't take a lot of, talent, and like managing emails would be a good one, right? So somebody's not going to be able to reply to all your emails, but if you get 10 emails, I would dare say that 5 of them could be templated and responded by somebody else who you trust. And then other emails will need to be handled. Well, when I go to my inbox, there's stars there. And anything with a star is something that I need to handle, and anything without a star is something that, is handled for me. So that way, again, it saves me an incredible amount of time of sifting through all of that. And if this guy thinks of himself as, $50 an hour, it makes a lot of sense to hire somebody for 10 or 10, 15, 25 to do those tasks. If he thinks of himself as worth 500 or 5,000 per hour, which might make a lot more sense depending upon where he's at, it's going to be easier again, right? So, get someone to drive you, get someone to wash your clothes, get them to make your smoothies, get them to mow the lawn, get them to clean your pool, get them to clean the house twice a week. And then, by the way, do those things for your wife, right? So not just thinking about you, but thinking about your wife. So it takes pressure off of her. So she's going to be more comfortable doing a little extra with the kids because you're at the office if you're taking those types of things off of her plate, right? And some of them I get aren't going to be possible, and then some people aren't in a position to be able to do that straight away. But I would go psychology and say you're never going to go big by thinking small, right? So believe me, you can pay somebody to do your laundry, you can pay somebody to clean your house, and I do believe, and I've said this a lot, but business owners should absolutely be, what do you call it? Absolutely be outsourcing that sort of stuff. And then L is liberation. There's 4 things that people are motivated by. Again, Road Dog, we've handled that. It's money, mastery / status, love/relationship, and then movement / freedom. For those driven by freedom, which is ultimately the ability to choose, and this is a big one, like surfing is better in Australia, right? Skiing is better in Canada or Austria. Life for you might be better in Turks and Caicos, right? Like, why tie yourself to a single location? Is what lifestyle experts will ask you, right? Especially with, kids, get a factor in kids. Kids need certainty. So I'm not a fan of moving kids around and that sort of thing. I do think they need certainty. Forget what I think. This is what the experts, about 1 million times smarter than I'll ever be, will tell you. So that you got to factor that stuff in, right? But Road Dog, it's kind of a, it's one of those, you got to tread lightly there. You got, again, if you go to an alpha, he doesn't want to be wrong. He wants to be right. There's a part of him that will also want to be understood depending upon, where his energy's at, but you don't want to create resistance and whatnot. You need to handle that delicately. And you certainly wouldn't say like, oh, your wife says this, like that. And by the way, maybe that's what you got to say. Maybe that's what's going to work. I mean, this is where the magic of coaching comes in. You got to be able to, navigate all of that. So Road Dog, yeah, a difficult one, but just thinking about that, definition, elimination, automation, and maybe liberation. I'm trying to think of where that's from. I can't remember. But anyways, so there you go.
Another thing to think about really as I'm listening to all this is lifestyle over bank account.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, it's not for everyone, right? But is that relative income more important than absolute income, right? Like if one person's making $400,000 and is locked in his office to quarterly reporting and doing 60 hours a week in the office and a 1 hour commute to and from work, so 2 hours a day sitting in the car, is he better off in his BMW nice house than the guy making $60,000 from his home office selling mugs and t-shirts on Amazon, only doing 40 hours a month, right? And depends what drive you, right? Like your definition, right? But I dare say that many will go for the home office In order to get to this conclusion, though, you need to redefine, I said it earlier, like what it means to be quote unquote rich, right? Like my best friend, I've had the same best friend since I was 8 years old. He's like a brother. He works for the government. He works 38 hours a week, gets full benefits, has 2 kids. He's a rock star dad. And in his mind, he's rich, right? Time is more important to him than money. And importantly, the amount needs to, and by the way, it's not like he's unmotivated and whatnot. He's a super smart guy, but like, and when the kids are older, he'll hit university. He'll likely, make more and work harder, but in a different season for him, right? And maybe not the BMW, but his definition of rich and mine are different, and that's totally okay. And he knows exactly where he's at, and he's happy as a bloody lark, right? And again, he's an absolute rock star dad, and the relationship that he has with his kids would just blow you away, right? But importantly, that monthly lifestyle. So you've also, if you're going to take the one approach, you might need to dial back a few things, right? You can't be, losing money each month and winning, right? Like that's not going to work. Another critical distinction is like entrepreneur versus employee. One guy does 60 hours to build his business, and another does 60 hours and he's answered to the boss, right? The entrepreneur can do the same, but then take the week off. 2 weeks off, a month off, depending upon, staff, but, maybe it's build that nest egg for retirement, but it's work hard and smart for 7 years, to not work hard for 30 years. That's, that the entrepreneur mindset doesn't always work out that way. That would be an understatement, but, all these things are relative. And I guess it needs to come back to what I said, definition. If you only have 7 years to live, or you're going, are you going to go and work, 60 to 70 hours a week while your kids are young? That would reframe your definition. But you need to have a good coach to be able to position it in such a way that you'd make that decision, as opposed to them saying, hey, what you're doing is wrong, right? So it's always this dance. If you listen to Tony Robbins talk, he almost talks in constant questions. It's like an absolute art form that I do not have. He just literally just talks in questions, kind of wild. Anyway, and then think effective versus efficient. I believe in, kind of work hard, play hard. If you're an entrepreneur and the solution to getting rich is to not take a vacation, you're crazy. You dream bigger when you're away, right? Like not taking vacations is an expensive habit. You can do the right things and then you can do things right, more important than doing the right things, doing something unimportant well and with, vigor does not make it important, right? Like what decision can you make that will eliminate other decisions, right? Like which big rock could you move? What problem could you solve that will eliminate others, right? And think 80-20, talked about this to death, but you could never mention it enough. More important than 80-20 is when you factor 80-20, down multiple times, you get the 1% of your activity represents 50% of your efficiency, right? So like, what are those 1% activities in your business? What are those 1% activities in your client's business? And by the way, big rocks, and they're not going to stand out. If you just go ask your client, hey, what's the 1% activities that, derive 50% of your revenue and clients and lead gen and conversion and et cetera? What's the 1% of your staff that represent 50% of the efficiency around here? They're not going to have, I would be amazed if they've got the answer for you, right? So how do you get there? By asking a series of questions and know what you're looking for. And that's where experience comes in. The complement 80-20 is also, what do you call it? Parkinson's law. Like, what do you say? Like the task will grow in time and complexity to fill the time allotted for its completion. Am I wording that right? Like if I had days like where I built a 5-hour presentation, like a business coaching mastery, we did that in Cancun not long ago. One of the biggest takeaways and macro business coaching concepts, like I took all the biggest stuff, and I basically drilled it down, but I got it done in like record time. So why? Because I had to, because the event was coming up and I was on my way to Cancun in an airplane and had to kind of, get her done. So magically I got it done. If I had, I knew 3 months in advance that I needed to get this done. And guess what? It it didn't, you know what I mean? Like it didn't get done. It got done when it needed to be, right? Like somebody will write an email 17 times and then not even send it, right? Like just so many, waste of production. And I'm, again, this is, you look, you want to be looking at your calendar. You want to be looking at your time. You got to be careful that the task doesn't grow. The time allotted for its completion needs to be tight. So I guess Dan Kennedy would say is you got to create a lot of deadlines. And I would dare say that if I look at your, past week, past month, past quarter, I'm probably not going to see a lot of deadlines. So, be conscious of these activities. You can make mistakes, but you can't keep making the same mistakes type of thing. So again, those deadlines, and make them short, right? Push yourself. The student syndrome is kind of the same ilk, right? Like when you went to school, when did you study for the exam? At the same time that Road Dogg and I did, and that's at the last minute, right? So again, you got to create that deadline. But unfortunately for an entrepreneur, you kind of got to manufacture a deadline because you know what I mean? You don't have it because you're an entrepreneur. So you get to call the shots, which is great, but also it's a blessing and a curse, right? So, and because if the student didn't have the deadline for the test, and well, that's what happens. It's like, you need to get this project done by this date. And again, when does the project get done? It's not a test, but it's all of a sudden a due date, the same thing. So, and one of the things that I do, Road Dogg, we talked about this at different times on the podcast. My alarm goes off 4 times a day at 8, 10, 12, and 2. Idea just keeps me on point. Just again, it goes off 4 times a day. I call it quarter time, right? So, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and it just jogs me. Like, am I being the question I'm asking? Am I working? Am I working on 150, 80, 20 type activities? And am I kind of, am I being efficient with my time, right? And am I being active? Am I just, kind of tooting around? And of course, guess what? Because that alarm's been going off for a long time, I dare say, like, I don't need the alarm to go off anymore kind of thing. Although sometimes it does jog me for sure. But again, because I've done that for a long time, I think that I've become significantly more efficient. I do, daily email to get that bad boy out. It's not the easiest thing in the world. Anyway, so that's what I'd say, Road Dogg. And maybe again, like, might be worth mentioning here, like a business that I would start, or like the one that I want to be helping, like service-based companies, painting, roofing, handyman, that kind of thing. Like they can't come and get squashed by Amazon like a bug. Like this is relevant, especially in this day and age. I mean, Amazon can send out a press release and basically crush the stock price of an entire industry, right? Like, unbelievable the power that they have. But, so just making sure you're building a life around, things that you're enjoying and not perceived enjoyment, but real enjoyment. And by not thinking that your business is vulnerable, I would dare say emotionally will keep you in a, stronger kind of place, and again, and what is that enjoyment versus perceived enjoyment? Like a trip to Hawaii, Turks and Caicos, Costa Rica, Mexico, is that cooler to you than the BMW or the Mercedes? And I will tell you that, that experts much smarter than I will tell you that spend your money and time on experiences as opposed to things. But you also, do both, but buy the 4-year-old BMW and jump in a plane and take your family to Turks and Caicos, so this is where the balancing act is. Nobody cares about your new BMW except for you. And that new car smell goes away remarkably quickly. So anyway, so that's, Road Dogg. There's no right and wrong with that stuff, but I totally agree with you that, just kind of rant there, lifestyle over bank accounts. I think we've both seen a lot of people, and it's very common to make the mistake of, going bank account as opposed to lifestyle. And so that's our job as a coach, I think. What do you think, Shoots?
I know we're going long, and I'm going to wrap, but just the one question, you mentioned your quarter time. You mentioned your daily email. Do you have certain amount of tasks that you complete per quarter? You know what I mean? Like, is there certain things you're like, okay, well, in the fourth quarter, I got to do, because I think you do your daily emails.
Good question.
Night, right?
Yeah.
So how do you do that? How do you
that's a big, Yeah. Okay. Look, good. Look, the answer is no. It's big rocks, right? It's just I know that my daily emails become a big rock. You know what I mean? Like if I don't send out the email, like it comes out bright and early in the morning. If it for whatever reason doesn't go out, my inbox is full of people going, "Where's the email?" Like so, I just know that people have been enjoying it and it's been good and it's very good for me because again, I learn and then I turn it into an email and that's part of how I cement the learning, right? So anyway, so I think, yeah, as opposed to a certain amount of tasks, it's your spidey senses. What's the problem? Like I've got a big rock, which we won't talk about today, but like that, internally for our company. And it's not about growth and it's not about, and it's an existing, quote unquote thing. And it's there's a problem and it needs to be solved and that no matter what the time is, but I got to be careful, Road Dog, right? Like I got to do my best to manufacture deadlines and then help the guys, the software engineers and whatnot, manufacture deadlines to make sure that we, get this stuff done, get this stuff completed. So there you go. So that's my answer to that, Shoots.
Okay.
Answer to
So
that.
would you say though as a good starting point, because you know how they always say like no more than 4 tasks, right? Like, because again, at the end of the day, dude, if we all got 4 things done in a day, it'd be amazing how much you'd actually get done. Like,
actually, well, Tony, so I think, so here's what Tony Robbins has a program, what does he call it? RPM, right? Rapid. So what does he do? Rapid planning something or a method, I think it's called. But at the end of the day, it's like you go to your to-do list and you got like 10 things to get done, right? And he'll tell you, and he's right, that you're not getting it done. I'm not getting it done. Nobody's getting their to-do list done, right? So to try is ridiculous. So what you do is you go to the 3 most important things, take them to the top of the do list, put everything else aside, and get those 3 things done, right? And you said 4, so you could go to 4, but I believe that he says 3, and that's that's a productive day. And there's and this, right? Like there's a good chance you're not getting those 3 things done. Like that's too many things to get. If they're big rocks, I mean they're probably not getting done today anyways. So that's the way just big rocks Shoots. I think thinking of the little rocks and big rocks, and then does the big rock knock out little rocks that don't need to be done, and that's very common. So there you go.
Awesome. We could have a whole nother conversation on that, because the what I'm employing is basically what's a big rock that I want to accomplish, say this quarter, and then what are basically the way I look at it is just the system I use. We call them weekly doors. What's the door that I got to open this week so I can then get to the next door? And then we call it a domino door, right? Because each domino will then make the other one easier. And then by the end of the quarter, you've got this massive thing accomplished. So, but anyways, we could do a whole thing on that. But why don't you close us out and give us one thing from today's podcast that people can implement into their business?
You know what? I can't remember the question, but it was something about spoke to my client's wife, and she says that his goals should be different. Like I don't know. I wouldn't define that as a bigger rock, but I would put that as a big rock, if you know what I mean, right? Like to not manage that and get to the bottom of it and just understand it. Here's something I did with my daughter just literally 2 days ago, right? So we do these, funny little things. And so I just said to her, I said, here's the question of the day, baby. And I said, is it true? Right? So is it true? So somebody says, you're the meanest person ever. You ask yourself the question, is it true? Right? You put she's got this little, to call it a YouTube channel. She has 7 subscribers, but she talks a lot about her YouTube channel for somebody with 7 subscribers and probably about 7 videos up there. But I'm like, okay, one day, because why don't I want her to have a bunch of videos? The same reason that you don't want your kids having a bunch of videos online. I don't want her to be about likes and shares and comments and all that stuff. It's not. There's a debate to say that it's very unhealthy. It's also a debate to say the kid that crushes it and starts making some money at a young age is set up better. So there's a debate that we won't have today about that, right? But I just said to her, you're going to put up a video one day and then somebody's going to say you're ugly, or you're the ugliest person I've ever seen, or they're going to say something derogatory, something negative. I said, baby, what are you going to ask yourself when they write that? She said, is it true? And I said, absolutely. Right. So maybe, I don't know, first of all, maybe there's some value there because that's first principles thinking, basically the mental model, which I believe to be insanely powerful, but, just going to what is true rather than trivial, but what is true, going just because the wife thinks it and just because the husband thinks it and just whatever, going to what is real and that dynamic might be an effective roadmap. To just hang on a minute, the wife's not right, the hubby's not right, you're not right. It's like you got to go to the real fundamentals of this situation. You know what I mean? To try work out what is true, what is right, which direction should everybody be going? I don't know. Is it true? I don't know. I did that with my daughter literally 2 or 3 days ago, and she liked it, by the way. And she said it to me a couple times. Since then, so maybe there's some value in that. But to manage the wife and hubby relationship is part of what you got to do. So there you go, Shoots.
I like that. Is it true or is it trivial? There you go. That's nice.
Boom. Nice. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets with. He's no longer the man on top of the hill. What am I going to say now? The man at the end of the pier? Like, you're changing my whole game here. My God. Anyways, King Karl and his Caribbean castle. Oh, that's got a nice ring to it. King Karl and his Caribbean castle.
Nice.
And if you're not on the inside, what's that? You like that? Is that good? Is that our new stuff?
It shoots. Well done. Keep going. Let's
All
go.
Right. If you're not on the inside getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's amazingly hilarious emails every single day with jokes for sure to offend your mother, be sure to visit Poached.com and subscribe today. And again, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please share with a fellow coach or someone that you think might make a great coach, or just any fan of Tony Robbins. Is clearly Karl talks about Tony. Did you want to mention Tom Brady real quick before I sign off? You haven't even said anything yet.
Shoots. He's my man.
Tom
Going
Brady,
to the playoffs. Shoots.
Also the unofficial boyfriend of Karl Bryan. Anyways, on that note, we would appreciate if you rate this episode, as we know that the streaming services give an insane amount of weight towards reviews. And that is it for another week. On behalf of Karl Bryan, Tom Brady, Jeff Bezos, and Elon Musk, it's the Road Dog signing off. And remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody. We'll see you in the next episode.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.